Welcome to Brainstorm 9000.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me.
Don't hurt me.
No.
Maybe we should have played then Nazareth. They used to have a song which is called Love Hurts. I used to have a band and we played the song actually. We had
You had a band?
Yeah, everybody knows that.
I did not know that.
A second.
Okay, yes. I do know this song.
If I could sing right now, I cannot sing. So,
Oh, that is excellent.
But, I mean, come on, guys. We are going to talk about love and Valentine's Day today. Right across from me, I have a person who we proudly call Master McMaster because her real name is actually Jane McMaster, has master's degree in philosophy.
Thank you very much.
And they call me lovingly Dr. Schultz.
Well, legitimately, they call you Dr. Schultz.
Because I'm a doctor and I'm a psychiatrist and God knows what else.
Yes.
We'll talk about it. I did some research in my life, whatever. I would start this episode from the Beatles song, All You Need Is Love.
All you need is love.
Which I totally agree with.
All you need?
Well, at the end of the day, think about somebody who is like 75, 80 years old,
Yeah.
has all the money in the world you can possibly imagine, and sits in a large mansion alone with an old dog. That's a very depressing picture.
What if they love the dog?
You still need human love
I don't know.
and warmth.
I don't know. We will get into that.
Okay,
We will get into it.
but it would be nice to have somebody, right? Am I quoting the Beatles again? Everybody needs somebody. Or
You're
whatever.
nobody until somebody loves you. God, there are so many cliches.
Yes, so tomorrow is the Valentine's Day.
Tomorrow is the Valentine's Day, the day of Valentine's.
Valentine is a saint, right?
Saint Valentine is a saint. I don't remember why. Ooh, no.
Right.
Okay, Saint Valentine of Rome. Imprisonment for performing weddings for soldiers who were forbidden to marry, and for ministering to Christians persecuted under the Roman Empire. So the legend is that he was executed, but before he was executed, he wrote a letter and signed, "Your Valentine, as a farewell."
So romantic. So a word romantic comes from the word Rome.
Oh shit! It all comes full circle.
Okay.
Oh my god, this is crazy. So it all, it all comes from Rome and murder. So I'm loving this already. I'm really vibing with this.
Right.
I mean, so love is so complex culturally and neurologically.
Well, everything is complex neurologically, but I can tell you, I would like to ask you a question.
Yes.
Or the master of all the McMasters.
Speaking.
Do animals have love?
So, on a chemical level, I think they do. Not in the same way that humans do. I don't think so. But I think that animals have this, they produce the same neurochemicals that are associated with love, which is why some animals like mate for life. Some are like bonded pairs.
Well, it could be their, classical conditioning thing. Let's forget about chemistry for a second, because you are talking hardware. Let's talk software here. Example, my younger daughter used to have a cat. I mean, the cat lived in a big house in which everybody else lived. The cat, of course, was neutered, but he identified as a male.
Okay.
Neutered cat, right?
So we call them desexed.
Right. So he never heard you speak and never read anything. So he would go out. He was like an in and out cat. So he had to eat cat food in the house, but he caught all the mice and anybody else he could, and brought them initially to our doorsteps.
Well, that's nice.
And one day, this desexed cat brought in another desexed female cat, gave her a tour of our house, introduced her to all the treats, and then they left. So ever since, I think that at least cats have love. For example, if you look at least apes, so apes are orangutan, gorilla, chimpanzee, you call them?
Bonobos. They're the closest genetically related to humans.
I thought it was pigs, actually, who are
No.
genetically related. So anyway, I observed them in a couple of zoos, and they don't just simply mate. I mean, there is a
Yeah.
relationship going on. There is a lot of
Interesting.
stuff going on. I mean, they do have relationships.
Yeah, and well, so bonobos, they're the subject of a lot of studies about this that I've heard about because they have sex. Sex is like a very normal social exchange.
Right.
So it's not just about reproduction. It's
Right.
about just having like a friendship or like making up after a fight. But like all like in a bonobo society, like everyone is fucking. Like males and females, females and females, males and males, just like all over the place. It's like shaking hands.
So it sounds to me like a hippie commune kind of relationship.
Bonobos are
Hippies.
like furry hippie humans.
Well, hippies are usually furry, no?
Yeah, I guess they're a little
At least they
furrier,
used to
though.
be.
I mean, what I think is so interesting is, this difference that you already brought up that I actually didn't even think we were going to get to today. The difference between, like, love on a chemical level, on a biological level, and on... Why is that? Why do we associate love with here, with the heart, when really, okay, I just want to talk about the chemicals because I feel
Right.
like it's all in the head.
Of course it is.
So why does everyone associate it with your heart?
Well, I didn't do any research on that. So maybe I should have. But, when you feel something, when you feel a strong feeling, most likely it is mediated by a couple of pretty common chemicals, some of which we call, in quotes, stress chemicals, unquote, which are released by our adrenals. So if it's cortisol or adrenaline, or if we are talking about what the brain releases during the times of experiencing stress, which could be from extreme pleasure. So stress is something in excess. So if you are madly in love, it's also stress. It's a positive stress, but still it's stress.
Yeah.
And then it's a judgment call, positive, schmositive. I mean, who knows? So vasopressin is one of the hormones of stress.
Yes, I have heard of this one.
And vasopressin affects our blood vessels. And of course, the heart rate and the way you feel in your heart changes. So that's one of the explanations, because you really feel it in your heart, in your chest.
Okay.
And another thing that culturally and traditionally, in many, many cultures in the good olden times that we know about, heart was always associated with love.
And like your spirit,
Spirit.
right?
In a lot of cultures, people said that your spirit is located in your heart. And of course, there is a heart chakra, and if it opens, you can feel.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Chakras, those things.
It's probably tradition combined with probably some factual material. So
Yeah, can we talk about the other love chemicals? I'm just so fascinated by this. So you've done neuroendocrinological research.
neuroendocrinology research at Columbia University for
Yes.
4.5 years, and actually I authored together with my boss, Professor Michel Ferrand, a paper that probably 20 people in the world only read, which showed that vasopressin mediates stress in the brain in female rhesus monkeys. So in females,
Cool.
generally speaking, because that's what we were studying. We were studying neuroendocrinology of a female reproductive axis. Not like an axe that you kill people with. Axis meaning, I don't know how to explain axis. It's like...
like the axis of evil?
Yeah, like, yeah. So Yes, I did studies, and I have to tell you, certain things, according to research, do change in the brain at different stages of love, of course, during sex and when you feel very emotional. People did not name, to the best of my knowledge, any new love-specific substance. So it's not like there is a love hormone, right? You can argue that testosterone is responsible because, testosterone in both males and females alike is responsible for sex drive. One of the factors, not all of them. In females, testosterone is released by adrenals, and still people measure testosterone level, and if it goes down, sex drive goes down. And in males, it's released by adrenals also, but also by male reproductive organs.
Yeah.
So it affects directly the brain. But love is not only about sex. Some people argue that love cannot be without sex, but some people argue very strongly that it can be. Everybody knows about platonic love.
Yeah.
Maybe as a philosopher, you can define for us why is it called platonic?
It's a type of love that's like non-sexual.
Right.
That's more about like having a closeness to wisdom.
Right. So it's love of God. It could be love of your neighbor. Love thy neighbor as thyself, they say, right?
Yeah, you could think of it that way. I mean, love of wisdom, philosophia.
Well, I have to give my 5 cents to this
You have 5 cents, okay.
Yeah, or 50. I spoke, of course, throughout my life to a bunch of people about different things because of my profession. And it turns out that even in cases where, for example, somebody who has a male who has a sexual dysfunction takes Viagra, in many cases, unless they like a person, they cannot get an erection. So I learned in my life that just sex without absolutely nothing else in humans probably does not exist. Of course, people get drunk and do stuff. That I don't count. But when a person is conscious and not poisoned by any chemicals, I think still they need to like another person. I call it interpersonal chemistry. I mean, it's not my way to call things. I've heard it a thousand times.
Chemistry.
So, but interpersonal chemistry is a very complex event. So I'm coming back to talking about chemicals. A lot of researchers claim that people also pick up the pheromones. So pheromones are chemicals that are released in the air from our skin.
I have heard this.
And another person picks up the smell. They almost religiously talk about butterflies, being a male butterfly, being able to sense a female butterfly thousands and thousands of miles away. And I hope it's accurate, but to me it sounds kind of crazy, but okay. But people certainly perceive each other on many different levels. So through the eyes, through the ears, and of course through the sense of smell. And some people claim that we also have an aura and we can feel each other's energy, which to me, to say that there is other stuff that is going on between live things, they connect somehow. We just don't know what it is. Like, for example, I have 2 cats, and without talking to each other, they know what's going on. I mean, it's very clear.
Yeah.
And they come to each other without making a sound, whatever. So I'm of the strong belief, based on thousands of other people's experience I spoke to and my own experience, that most likely, even when we say sex, like just sex, it still involves some sort of an emotional connection.
Yeah, definitely.
For whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, so love is basically, it's like a combination of feelings, right?
Right.
And feelings,
Right.
you can think of them in a metaphysical way, but they can also be traced back to physical things, chemicals in your brain. So the main chemicals that are associated with feelings of love
At this time.
are oxytocin, which is associated with like bonding, right?
I'm having difficulties, as you know, believing all this stuff because I've done so much research in my life and thought about it. So yes, chemicals are released and they can be identified. And I can tell you, for example, that there is kind of a well-known Helen Fisher study. She is a PhD and she is a biological anthropologist at Indiana University. So in 2005, they conducted functional MRIs of 16 college students who described themselves as being intensely in love.
Oh.
And then they did, I don't know why so many, 2,500 brain scans. So 17 people, 2,500 brain scans. And they looked at pictures of their acquaintances who were special to them and people they romantically loved. And it was found that people they romantically loved caused the participants' brain to become active in regions with a lot of dopamine.
Okay.
Additionally, two of the brain regions that showed activity were the caudate nucleus, associated with reward detection and expectation, and the ventral tegmental area, associated with pleasure, focused attention, and the motivation to pursue and acquire rewards.
That makes sense.
What is functional MRI? If anybody ever had an MRI, have you ever had an MRI?
I almost did, but I am very claustrophobic, and so I could not go into the machine.
That brings me to a very important point. So there are open MRIs right now, but usually, and I've had a few MRIs in my life, one of them a few months ago of my brain. I do have a brain. As it turns out,
Supposedly.
yeah, they basically restrict you quite a bit on a very narrow bed, right, which is a part of the machine. And then it rolls inside of a tube, which is even narrower. And the machine begins to make unbelievably loud, disturbing noises that sometimes pierce throughout your entire body. So in functional MRI, the machine is basically the same, but it measures the distribution of the oxygen in the brain because brain consumes large amounts of oxygen, and the theory is that it means that blood is actively redistributed to a region of the brain that is active. This idea goes back to 1890s. Pay attention to this. And it's very convenient, and people do different types of functional MRI. There is also a SPECT scan that in color shows you how blood is distributed. During the SPECT scan, your head is firmly fixed. MRI, they just fix it a little bit. Here, it's very severely restricted. And there are multiple issues with this. So you are extremely uncomfortable during the scan. And then there is a special device, there is a special mirror so you can look at pictures from this basically grave you are in, which makes terrible noises all the time.
Right, so it's like a giant magnet. Right?
Yeah, but you don't know that. You are just inside of the thing and it makes noises all the time and it's very uncomfortable. So I understand as a person who've done research that this data is important, but the accuracy of the data in the relation to being madly in love and not being madly in love is by me questioned. And you know what? To say dopamine goes up is like to say a person has two legs, because anything you read about in neuropsychiatric research, it's always serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, vasopressin, all these different kind of things. So you can say, well, these are the chemicals that the brain uses for the neurons to talk to each other. This is true, but maybe there is significantly more to it. So what I'm trying to say here is that the reliability of research data is questionable. There are many, many issues with functional MRI. That left alone, I personally think that especially after we learned what is a computer, I mean, humans invented it, we must also start thinking on a broader picture. But yes, dopamine goes up.
So that's fair.
Right.
The critique of the studies and everything.
Right.
What scientists have done is they look at different species and they see the species that have a greater capacity for love and bonding and, mating for life and things like that, monogamy. They find similar abilities to produce more of certain hormones.
Well, swans are monogamous. The swans, swan,
Yeah.
beautiful, yeah. Mm-hmm. They're monogamous.
Yeah.
Do you know how little their brain is?
Pretty little.
Teeny tiny.
Yeah.
By the way, for people to appreciate, so you, the brains of the internet, allegedly have about 100 billion neurons.
About?
Yeah, because some people argue it's 50 billion. I don't know. I mean, it's an enormous number of cells. The cat that you have has 300 million If you have a dog and you love your dog, you need to understand that the dog loves you back, of course, and just loves you unconditionally. The dog has 180 million neurons. Mm-hmm. So if you keep going down the list, you'll wind up with a few thousand sometimes in some insects, and some animals, a bird is an animal, have fewer, and also their brain is organized in a totally different way. Birds don't have cortex the way we do. They utilize
the prefrontal cortex?
Yeah, they utilize a totally different formation in the old brain that is very large. So what I'm trying to say here is this. Yes, research is valid. It's fun to read about it and listen about it, but then you become kind of fed up with the fact that it's always dopamine and always serotonin. It's always the same thing all the time. What I'm trying to say, there is more to it. So because my pet peeve is the idea that we really need to expand our way of thinking about the brain and expand our research to the next level and finally admit, for God's sakes, that we do have software. A lot of people disagree with this idea. That's why I'm dwelling on it. But of course, and we might mention other studies when, for example, in 2011, Stony Brook University study performed MRI scans on couples who had been married for 21 years.
Okay.
And couples who were newly in love, finding the same intensity of activity in dopamine-rich area of the brain.
Okay, so
Right.
I know that you're very skeptical about the chemical thing, and
No,
I
I
mean
just said it.
that is, I mean, that's a bigger issue. Like
Right.
this is, I mean, there's a whole area of philosophy called phenomenology that
Right.
is about, you know, your experience of something. You know, can it be reduced to just a physical level, or is it something else? And it's a very difficult question. However, I am sympathetic to the studies that show a lot of really interesting things about all these different neurochemicals that are associated with different states. So like there have been studies that show that, you know, romantic love, you know, in the beginning it starts with this sense of like interdependence and attachment, and, you know, it's very intense, and they've noted a lot of cortisol, spike in cortisol, spikes in dopamine, because, you know, you're very stressed.
Exactly.
There's a lot. You have a lot of energy. You get butterflies. But then
Butterflies.
yeah,
I've never gotten butterflies. I don't know how it feels. So where do they fly, your butterflies? In what part
butterflies
of your body?
in your gut.
Yeah, I've heard it so many times.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's such a great feeling.
It's a good feeling.
Oh, it's great.
Okay, so maybe I have.
I mean,
then.
it's similar to the kind of feeling that you would get if you were it's like if you're on a roller coaster and you drop your
I
stomach.
hate
just,
that.
Oh.
Well, okay.
I mean, no, it's fun.
Okay.
It's fun.
Okay.
But then, so these studies show that, you know, there's all these really intense chemicals associated with like the early romantic love, but then as love sort of evolves,
Right.
and like you said, like these longer lasting relationships, that there is a difference in the chemicals where cortisol levels drop, so there's less stress, there's
Right.
more serotonin, so things are just like more stable. So there's still areas of the brain associated with like pleasure and reward that are activated by a loving relationship, but that unstable balance of like cortisol and like some really intense hormones is more balanced.
Yeah, so the study by Stony Brook that I just mentioned says otherwise. So as always, in neurobiological research, if you look at a large number of studies, maybe it's like this and maybe it's like that, which is human nature, similar to philosophy. Plus, not a large number of studies have been conducted, because for the study to be conducted, people forget, it needs to be funded.
Yeah.
So somebody has to want to fund the study of love. So,
Oh man, there's a lot to unpack here, but what I think we can probably both agree on is that love, whatever experience you have of it, can be really good for your brain health.
it is good for your brain, period, end of story. Love is good, love in capital letters, like in all you need is love.
Yeah.
And also, sex is very good. Research shows, first of all, that a stable romantic relationship definitely improves not only in big quotes, normal end of quote, people's lives, but also people with severe mental illnesses, like
Really?
the most severe one I can come up with is schizophrenia, do significantly better if they are in a stable, lasting relationship. For example, married, happily married. Much better prognosis, much better outcome.
That makes sense to me.
For depression is exactly the same thing. I don't need to remind people about the broken heart, another reference to the heart. When somebody leaves somebody and you feel apart, and I'm pretty sure if anybody conducted any Kakamani studies on checking the chemicals in the brain, it also would be dopamine, cortisol, all over the place.
So love can be really great for your brain, great for
Yes.
your mental health, but it can also be a gigantic source of stress.
Especially if you are trying to be in love and want to
Right.
be loved and you are not getting it.
There are so many like political and social constructs around like dating and love, finding a mate and partnership and what that means and how it's supposed to be, and that can be super stressful. Like particularly I think today with all of the new norms of dating seem to be like stressing us out more than ever.
Like, for example, ethical non-monogamy.
Yes, well, that does exist. I mean, there are a lot of different kinds of relationships that you can have, which is like very freeing in a way, but because we've become so confined to the internet and our phones, you know, it's difficult to meet people. There are a lot of expectations. There's a lot of unclear communication.
Yes.
So it can be really stressful for millennials.
Yes.
So we recently got a chance to sit down with a lady millennial to tell us about her feelings about modern dating and how that impacts her mental health.
So, the brains of the internet, let's welcome our lady and the entire conversation.
Yes, welcome to our special guest, Ash.
Hi.
So, you know, Ash, I learned last week, literally, a new term. It's called ethical non-monogamy.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
You know what it is?
It's when people date other people but tell their partner. It's very common now.
Yes.
It's when people want it all. They want their cake and they want to eat it too. That's what ethical non-monogamy is, I think.
Yeah. I've known quite a few. I tried to date one, but it was too stressful. I'm just a monogamous person.
I am too. It's messy.
Yeah? So, what's going on? Or should I say, what the hell is going on with dating people? Enlighten me.
So many things.
A lot. I wish I knew, because
So-
then maybe I wouldn't have to be out there dating.
So, Ashley, you wanted so much to talk about dating. Why?
It's one of the biggest stressors in my life, I would say. It seems like I have my whole life together. I have the job, I have the apartment finally after years of living in New York City and having roommates. I have my dog, but I don't have a boyfriend, and I got out of a very long relationship in March.
Right.
A lot of my friends have boyfriends and they're all off. They, you know how everyone ditches their friends when they have boyfriends.
Right.
So it just is kind of like a social pressure that I almost feel. And also like a sense of loneliness. Like everything else is complete, so you kind of want that last puzzle piece.
Do you feel like it's part of like a societal thing? Like because, you know, in our culture, like you're supposed to get married around like age 30 or before.
Oh, totally.
And you're supposed to have a partner. So you feel like something's missing if you don't have a partner. Is it like that, or do you just genuinely want a partner?
Well, I personally am I wouldn't say codependent, but I like to have someone who's 50-50 in my life. Mm-hmm. So I feel a pressure that I put upon myself to have a significant other, not necessarily a spouse yet. I'm in my mid-20s, so I don't feel that that's something that's necessary quite yet.
Okay, yeah, I guess that makes a difference. How old are you?
I'm 25.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's getting to that point now where I see friends with significant others for long periods of time starting to talk about marriage and kids, and my parents personally had gotten married very young. My mother was 21. My father was 9 years older than her. So I feel that external pressure as well. And then with social media and, you know, of course, everyone posting on the holidays with their significant others.
Oh my
It's a
God, I
hard
hate
time.
those posts.
Me too.
It's so stressful.
So today, in my practice, I met a lady who is in her early 60s. And she has a boyfriend for about 25 years, the same guy, who takes her out. And he offered her to get married on multiple occasions. And she refused. She says, I'm quoting her, if you want milk, you don't have to buy a milk farm, she says.
Yeah. Yeah, some people just don't want marriage.
She but she literally wants to be alone because the conversation went in the way that whenever she feels like seeing him, she calls him up and they go out and whatever else happens, happens. But otherwise, she prefers to stay by herself. So there are people and there are people. There are people who need a partner and there are people who don't need the partner. And I'm guessing from what I hear from my daughters and from people your age, that there are applications that allow people to satisfy their various needs, right? Are they helpful in dating seriously? What has been your experience?
Yeah, apps like
Oh.
Tinder, Bumble.
I've done them all. I've done Tinder, I've done Bumble, and I've done OkCupid when I was more serious.
Right. What's the difference between Tinder and Bumble?
Tinder, you swipe and the other person has to also swipe and then you match and either one of you can talk to each other. On
Right.
Bumble, you each swipe and if you match, the woman has to initiate the conversation within 24 hours.
Yeah, so they're different. I mean, I think you could say that maybe the kind of people who use the apps might differ a little bit, but the main difference is how you find a match.
So maybe I'm going to surprise you, but can you guess which one of these two young men prefer?
Bumble.
How did you know?
Because they want women to message them first because they're lazy.
Yeah. That's why
Massive.
I never tried Bumble.
I did it for a little while and it was not really successful and I ended up finding a lot of the people that were on Bumble also on Tinder.
So I can tell you what men told me. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to recruit any of them to come here. They say that actually what they prefer on Bumble is that they don't have to make a useless effort. Because if a young woman chose them, it means that it's already a beginning and gives them more hope that they are going to meet you. And then whatever happens, happens. On Tinder, apparently, there is not that much certainty. I've never used any of this. I don't need to. I'm married, so I don't know.
I think it really depends on the person and what they're using the app for, because I've used Tinder before to look for dating, like serious relationships. And I actually, my current boyfriend that I've been with for 1.5 years now, we met on Tinder.
Wow.
And I had a serious relationship before that who I also met on Tinder. So, it's not just for hookups like a lot of
Yeah.
people say, but there are definitely a lot of situations. There were a lot of situations where I meshed with like a guy, for
Right.
example, that I thought was like so perfect and I was so
Right.
excited, but they never messaged me. So I sent them a message and then I just like never heard back. So it goes both ways.
That happens so much. That happens on Bumble too. Like even if the woman initiates and sends a message and the guy responds, they don't always like continue the conversation.
Yeah. One time I tried so hard to make conversation with this cute, like tall Jewish artist, babe. I tried so hard and it was just like nothing. It was giving me nothing to go on. I was like, what are you up to? And he's like, drawing. I was like, cool. What?
I feel like we've all had those.
It's
Like
like-
you're begging the guy to say something
Like,
and then they complain
please.
that you don't talk.
Yeah. Ugh. Oh, dating. The snarls of dating. I also had a lot of times when a guy seemed really cool and we were messaging and it would be like, I don't know, Friday or Saturday, like, like late afternoon or early evening, and they'd be like, let's hang out tonight. Like, let's go meet up somewhere. And I was like, I'd be like, I actually already have plans tonight, but, you can text me tomorrow and we can figure something out, and just never hear from them again. Like, they're interested in getting someone right now, and probably just for a hookup.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely I would say 3 different categories of guys on Tinder.
Okay.
There's the category of guys, at least from my experience, that only want the hookup. Mm-hmm. There's the guys who want the hookup but consistently, like friends with benefits. That's a big majority of them. It's the biggest majority is they want friends with benefits. And then the rare guy who's out there like looking for love, which is like 1 in like 300. Would you found?
And I have found them.
I found one too. I was actually in a Tinder relationship for about a year and a half.
So wait a second. So friends with benefits in this case means that whenever he decides he wants to see you, he can see you?
Well, also the girl too.
Yeah, no, it's like you hook up, but you're not like, you're not exclusive. Ever you're dating other people.
So it's non-ethical non-monogamy then?
Yes.
Well, no, because it's not even a relationship. In ethical non-monogamy, there's an agreement between 2 people that they love each other. They're in a relationship, but they both want to explore other people. So they both make a conscious decision to have different partners, and they communicate about it, and so everyone knows.
They communicate about it.
Basically an open relationship.
It's an open relationship, which is different from friends with benefits because there's a conscious agreement that, like, we are together and we love each other.
Right.
But we're going to explore these other opportunities. One of my best friends, he has been married for 10 years, and things were just getting bad, and things weren't going great for them, so they decided to try an open relationship, and they've been doing it for like 2 years now, and they're both so much happier
and still together.
Yeah, they live together, they own a home together,
right.
They love each other, and they still do things together, but they both will go on dates with other people and just try new things, and they both talk to each other about it.
I feel like it takes a special personality to be able to do that. Like, you can't be a jealous type. Like, you have to be very secure in your relationship in order to do. I personally could not do an open relationship. Maybe if I was married, to switch things up if things weren't going well, and that was like a last ditch effort.
I've thought of that before.
Yeah. But like, besides that, like, I had a boyfriend who wanted to do an open relationship, and I actually let him go, and I felt cheated on. So I ended up saying to myself, I'm not able to do that. That's just not who I am.
Mm-hmm. I think both people have to want to do it for it to be. But, there's all kinds of different romantic situations that you can have these days.
Like what? Can you give me a laundry list?
Anything you can think of, Dr. Schultz.
I can't think about much at this moment.
You can't think about?
Yeah, I would like you to enrich the brains of the internet with your take on it.
I mean, it's not so much about a list of like things with labels.
Right.
It's more that these days a lot of younger people are starting to feel less of that. There's less of that societal pressure to be a certain way. And the preconceived notions of dating and what it should be and what you should be doing, and you should be with one person, and it should be a heterosexual relationship, and you should get married before you have sex. That stuff is fading, and in its wake, new ideas are coming forward that are like, do whatever you want, see whoever you want. I mean, who cares?
See, for me, that gets a little more difficult. As a heterosexual female, I'm finding more and more men who want non-monogamous relationships.
Right.
But I'm one of the more old school people.
Right.
And the pool of men who want monogamous relationships is getting smaller and smaller for me, causing more stress for me. Whereas I have plenty of girlfriends who are very open and different in terms of dating. But a lot of my very close girlfriends are all in monogamous relationships. And as my parents got married very young, I feel those pressures.
Yeah, I've known a lot of people throughout my life who've done the non-monogamous thing. And yeah, like I said, I almost dated someone who was like ethical non-monogamist, had a partner, and we hung out once, but I decided it just wasn't for me because, it's probably because of, the ideas that I was raised with, but I genuinely just want my one partner. And, I think, yeah, like you said, I mean, I've thought about like, oh, an open relationship, because, sometimes you think like, oh, but if you're going to spend the rest of your life with one person, especially I feel like to heterosexual men, that can sound like kind of daunting. Like, really? I don't get to experience anyone else. So I feel like at some point, maybe if I was with someone for a really long time, maybe that's something that I would explore, but I'm not interested in cultivating multiple relationships. Like I have another friend who has been married for about 3 years. She's quite young, actually. I think she's like around 24, 25. And her husband have an open relationship where not just they like, see other people and hook up with them, like each of them has like a girlfriend and a boyfriend.
How do they have time for that?
That's
my thing.
one of
I
the
don't
things
have enough time.
I'm like, who has time for all these relationships? I feel like I barely have enough time with my one. but that's something that people do, and I mean, yeah.
So traditions from the old times did exist with men to have multiple women. The Mormons in the United States.
Polygamy.
Yeah. Then in Muslim religion, people are allowed to have, let's say, 4 wives. I still debate because some say more. And then there are legends that in very old ancient times, the kings of Muslim religion had hundreds of women.
But that's a different kind of thing. Polygamy is different from not ethical non-monogamy, because in polygamy, it's, I mean...
Right.
And that still goes on in the United States as well. Like sister wives.
Yeah.
Where there's all these women married to one man in certain states.
Yeah, but in those kinds of situations, like Mormon polygamous relationships, the women aren't allowed to date other people.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to have their own...
They're indentured to
brother
the men.
husbands.
Yeah.
Right. So the only issue that you have is that it's becoming more and more difficult for you to find monogamous heterosexual men that are looking for romantic, lasting relationships.
I mean, I wouldn't even say that I need monogamy right away. I would just say that I'm somewhere in the middle currently, where I want the companionship and I want someone who wants to be with me and spend time with me, and not just friends with benefits. Like, I want kind of the monogamy aspect of having a partner, but not necessarily having to be monogamous yet. Like, I want a slow build up to that.
Yeah, and I think that can be a really good thing. And I've began a lot of relationships that way. It's very casual at first, but as you get to know each other better, you decide
fall in love with someone.
You decide you want to be exclusive.
I've had that where, like, I've had guys ask me and be very confused about what I'm looking for.
Right.
And I tell them, like, I'm not looking for a one-night stand. I'm not looking for a relationship. I'm looking for something in the middle, but I'm not going to rule out a relationship. Like, you don't know who you're going to meet or who you're going to fall in love with. You can't control those things. You know that.
Yeah.
Right.
And so if I do fall in love with someone or I want a relationship with someone, I want that to be an open option. I don't want to date someone who says, I'm never going to have a girlfriend or a wife.
Yeah, and I think that is a really healthy approach, to be like, it's not like I'm necessarily looking for just one thing and only that one thing. It's just like, it depends on the person, like, see what happens.
And I feel like women drive themselves crazy as well if they're looking specifically only for a relationship.
Yeah.
And especially if you're using these dating apps, you're going to be there for a very long time, unlike Jane, who lucked out.
Well, actually, my relationship was very, very casual at first. I didn't even see him that often because he was traveling so much. It was just like, oh, he's fun. Like, we'll go on a date once in a while when he's in town. And, then we started spending more time together. And I actually, and he knows this, had no interest in having a long-term relationship with him. I had no interest in, potentially getting married or getting serious with him. But he kept, pursuing me and being romantic and, doing all these super sweet things. And I don't know, eventually I was like, you know what? You are really fucking special. So that one was very much a surprise. And I feel like that worked out better than my other relationships, because in my other relationships, I was from date one, I was like, okay, how soon could he propose to me? And when you have those expectations, it can just really ruin it.
Yeah, I was going to say the expectations you put on yourself is a huge thing. Like me, I find now I'm having more success going into dating with an open mind and with saying I'm going to take things slow, not do the whole one night stand type thing, and it's becoming more fruitful.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you guys remember the times when there was no Tinder and no, how is the second one called, Bumble?
Bumble.
And
Right.
OkCupid.
And OkCupid.
Well, I'm
there's
sure there's
tons
more,
of them.
yeah.
Oh my goodness, they come out with a new one every day.
Right.
But my last relationship, which was 2.5 years, I met through Tinder, but I didn't meet him on Tinder. So my best friend met her boyfriend on Tinder, and her boyfriend worked with my now ex-boyfriend,
Aw.
and she introduced us. So it ended up somehow through Tinder still.
Right.
Met him, but not directly through Tinder.
But how did it happen before Tinder?
Oh, so awkward. I can't necessarily speak for Ash, but I can say that I think a lot of people in my generation don't love just the cold approach, the just walking up to a random person and starting a conversation. It makes me extremely uncomfortable.
Right.
So you have to, you used to have to you go to a bar, you go to a party, and then you just talk to random people, and you just have to go for it. And in this generation, a lot of men too, their way of flirting is to be kind of distant and to not approach you.
Too cool to be bothered with
Yeah,
talking
which
to.
is
Yeah.
so frustrating. But there's something about doing it through the internet, doing it through text at first,
Right.
where it just makes you more comfortable.
Well, I tried explaining Tinder actually to my mother to go on your point of how
Right.
people met before. But I honestly I asked her, I'm like, okay, well then how do you expect me to meet someone? And she's like, go sit in a coffee shop with a book and someone will come up to you.
No.
So I tried doing that and no one does it. And especially if anyone does it, it's older men.
Right.
It's not men my own age or even men a little bit older, which is, the age range that I'm in. It's much older men.
Because that's what they're used to, probably.
Yeah.
Right.
Like a girl sitting and reading a book, having a coffee, and they go up to them. And I said, Mom, that's not how it works anymore. People can be a serial killer just as much meeting them in person as
Yeah.
they can be online. You just need to use your own smarts about it.
Your own judgment.
Yeah, your own judgment. You need to text with them a little bit and get a
Feel it out.
Maybe if they have Instagram, look at their Instagram or their Facebook to see that they're a real person. You can
Yeah.
usually tell when they're fake. I've matched with hundreds of male models who are 3,000 miles away.
Right.
And I'm like, there's no way in hell that you are a male model and real.
But what's the point? So you see a fake male model, and then you meet someone still probably at the coffee shop, right?
No, I've never met a guy that I've gone on a date with at a coffee shop. I also only tried this once.
No. What I'm saying is that I'm trying to understand the process. So you matched on Tinder or Bumble, and now you have to meet.
Yes.
So the first time you meet in a public place, I'm
Yes,
hoping,
of course.
right?
Oh my goodness.
Right.
Well, it depends.
So then they're going to be found out.
Yes, but there's also the type of people on Tinder who want to just come over for sexual relations. And I'm not like that. First of all, like I said, I live alone, so
Right.
that's terrifying to me, and it's just not safe. So usually my go-to, at least, is to meet at a bar that I know the bartenders.
Right.
I'm sorry, where I know the bartenders, so that if something goes wrong or I don't feel comfortable, I'm able to give a signal to the bartender or something like that.
Oh,
to
that's
say,
smart.
Yeah, so I have my go-tos and...
Right.
That's wise. I would always be like, like meet up for a couple drinks at a bar.
I do drinks too. Like some guys will ask for dinner, but dinner's a little awkward for me the very first time
I would
meeting.
never do that.
Yeah.
I've had someone who like tried to do let's go swimming.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, I've never met you.
That's an excuse to see you in a bikini.
Right.
There
Right. of
so
course.
many things.
Right.
On that note, there's actually this one dating app that a friend of mine used. I don't know what it's called, but I thought it was so strange. The way it works is you type in what like a fun just like a random activity, and then you see like what other people typed, and then you pick them based on what they said, and then you have to go do that thing. So it's kind of hard to explain, and I really don't know how it works exactly, but my friend met a guy on there, and then their first date was going on like both riding bicycles in like Riverside Park. I'm like, and then another one was her and this guy did a yoga class together. I'm like,
See, I think
that sounds
cool a little bit.
I mean, yeah.
It's awkward, but it's definitely a good icebreaker, I feel like. Like, if you want to jump right into it, I feel like yoga or bike riding is a good idea. But I personally am not the type of person who could do that for a first date.
So I can tell you that in the olden times,
Yes.
it was very well known that if you are a male and you want to pick up women, you go to a yoga class because you are going to be one of the very few heterosexual males. And yoga chicks are usually good looking.
Chicks.
I'm telling you the way it was perceived. I've never done it in my life, but that's what I heard from other people. We need to remember that not only am I a time machine, I'm 63, but also I came to the United States when I was married, already with children, and I was 33 years old. Like, Jesus. So I have zero dating experience in the United States, and but I know things from friends of mine, clients of mine, because I strongly believe, and this is the reason I suggested for us to agree with Ash and have this podcast, is because love, dating, sex, relationships are very, very, very important factors of brain health.
Yeah.
And just of being happy, because our brain wants one thing and one thing only: pleasure and fun. Mm-hmm.
I agree.
So let me ask the both of you, if there was one thing that you wanted to change about dating nowadays, what would it be?
I think that I would prefer men to be more upfront.
What do you mean? To tell you all I want is sex?
Yes, if that's what they want. I don't want them to tell me they want a relationship and then I find out they only want sex.
What about you, Master McMaster?
I think it's really complicated because it really depends on the person, because some people are just shitty people, and some people are nice and honest. But I think honesty is definitely really important, and I understand why people don't reveal too much of themselves and what they want right away, because it can be intimidating. But I don't know. I just wish it weren't so awkward to just talk to a random person.
Right.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. At the end of the day, we're all humans.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I feel like everyone wants love or companionship one way or another, despite what you said earlier about the woman you spoke about earlier who sees the man when she wants to,
Right.
I feel like wants companionship in some way as well. So I feel like that unless you're a very specific type of person, you want love, companionship, all of that in some form.
Right.
Yeah, I think so. And some women get that from cats.
Or dogs.
I have a question for Ash.
Oh, yes.
So you said earlier that dating is super stressful for you right now.
Yes.
What about dating do you think is the most stressful thing?
Well, for me, I get a lot of anticipatory anxiety. So getting ready for the date
Oh my
is
God.
one of the most not even the outfit thing, just the getting, like, not the typical, I need to do my makeup, I need to do my hair, like, wondering if I have enough time, like, can I take my dog out in time? I always find myself ready, like, way too early also,
Right.
so it doesn't take me forever, but it's the anticipatory anxiety of getting home from work, as most of my dates are during the week. It's a big commitment to make a weekend date. So most of my dates are presently during the week.
Right.
And I feel the anticipatory anxiety of being at work all day, thinking about that, going home, getting ready, going to meet this stranger, not knowing how it's going to go is one of the biggest stressors. And then when you meet them, you know, if it's awkward and you don't want to continue on with the date, breaking it off from there. And I've actually come to the point where if I'm not enjoying the date, I don't care if I didn't finish my drink, I will leave. Like, I was never like that before, and it's become very harsh, and maybe I'm jaded, but I don't find that I need to waste my time anymore. For example, I had a date where in the guy's profile it said that he was 5'10".
Right.
I showed up to the date, I'm 5'1".
Right.
I was wearing 2-inch heels, that makes me 5'3". He was shorter than me.
Right.
Whoa,
So
on.
I said to him, oh, you know, just trying to be nice about it. I personally like taller guys.
Right.
And it's not that hard to find being 5'1", a
Yeah.
taller guy. So I told him, I said, oh, your profile said that you were 5'10". And he's like, well, I'm 5'8". And I was like, well, I'm 5'1". And we're in person in a
Right.
bar talking
Right.
about this. And he said, well, you lied about being 5'1" to seem more petite and cute.
Ugh.
And I was like, I will literally get a tape measure right now. And I felt like a crazy person. I went outside with him, took off my heels,
Right.
and stood next to him. And I was like, you're like 5'2" at most.
Right.
Jesus.
And-
I hate insecure men.
And I was like, just admit it. And he was fighting with me. I felt like a crazy person. I was on the street ready to like ask passerbys, like, how tall am I? Like, how tall do you think I am?
There's nothing more loathsome than an insecure heterosexual male.
Oh my gosh, I could not agree more.
Awful.
Yes.
It's terrible. And that's what I find is one of the most stressful things about Tinder. Or even like they may be insecure and they show it in an egotistical way. I find that a lot too.
Yes. Well, yeah, and that's kind of what I was referring to.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people like that, you know, those are the kinds of people who end up being men's rights activists. And,
Yeah.
oh, it's women's fault that I can't get a date.
Exactly.
So, any last words before we finish?
Everyone be nice to each other.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
love. Love whoever you want. Do it however you want, but be honest about it.
And keep in mind that, I mean, in the end, we're all kind of looking for the same thing.
Yeah. In one
So-
form or another, we are.
So, you know, and it's just human connections. Just be nice to each other, you guys.
I feel very sympathetic to Ash and a lot of people who go through this.
It's not easy.
Not easy. Although to me, after I was introduced to this kind of an experience with apps, it sounded like it's easy when two people found each other on the ride
Yeah.
home, hopefully, because it was after hours.
I guess it's better and it's worse.
Yes.
But ultimately, all that matters is love.
Yes. I also would like to bring people's attention to the fact that there are normal human beings who prefer to stay alone.
Yeah.
And it's totally normal for them. They feel balanced. They feel okay. I'm not even talking about people who choose to be monks and nuns. I'm talking about people who prefer not to be in the relationship. Of course, I forgot
think
to mention Catholic priests.
Yeah, no,
Right.
but so there are lots of different kinds of relationships you can
Right.
have. I mean, monogamy, non-monogamy, ethical non-monogamy, polygamy, or
Right.
celibacy. There are
Right.
all these different kinds of things, but I think that like everyone
Right.
still has love in their life, and the object
True,
of it does not
true.
have to be another human.
Yes, right.
So monks, maybe, or priests, their love is generated by their love of God.
And hopefully the flock, right? The people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, they're
Better be.
yeah,
right?
they're people.
Right.
And, you know, if you're a cat lady, You still feel intense love. It's just for your kitties.
Do you identify as a cat lady?
I will not answer that question. But I feel intense feelings of love when I look at my cats.
Yeah, so love is very important, and I suggest let's celebrate the Valentine's Day. By the way, to go back to my conversation about how it was in the Soviet Union, so Valentine's Day now is present in Russia, and I believe it's coming into countries that are not Christian. Like probably they celebrate a little bit of Valentine's Day in China, probably in Japan.
Yeah.
And in all different kinds of things. It's not a religious thing, actually, as we just learned. I mean, they killed the guy. It's just to remind people that all you need is love.
All you need is love. All you need is love. All you need is
Oh,
All right?
isn't that sweet? So, whether you believe that love is, more of a spiritual experience, or a bunch of chemicals rolling around in your skull, or if you believe it's a mix of both,
Yes.
or whatever, I think we can all agree it's important for a healthy, balanced life.
And a healthy, balanced brain. So please, keep your brains open to love.
True love. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Brainstorm 9000. If you like us, love us, or marginally tolerate us, hey, go ahead and subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever the hell you listen to your podcasts.